Welcome back to episode 2, continuing on with the series of the Why You Overeat podcast, and today I'm breaking down why control is keeping you stuck. Now we're going to talk about what stops people from actually getting results. What gets in the way of that happening? Because many people who are listening to this right now, I bet you can stick to a diet for a certain amount of time. I bet you can get results for a certain amount of time. But then the food noise cycle keeps on coming back. And when that food noise is strong, you don't know what to do with it. Before we do that, I'm going to read out a few passages from chapters 3 and 4. And we're going to look at some of these barriers that are stopping people from getting results. So I want to talk about control today. How control's not the thing you think it is. So what I mean by that, the more control that you seek, the more out of control you tend to feel. The paradox of control is a real thing. And when we are talking about the paradox of control when it comes with someone's eating habits, the more you try and control your eating habits, the less control you seem to have over it. That is exactly how you will more than likely feel right now. I'm not reading your mind, I promise. I've just worked with thousands of clients. This is the one thing they keep coming back with. I just need more willpower. I just need more discipline. I just need to try harder. And it's this attitude that actually causes people to stay stuck. So I'm going to break down the paradox of control for you today, and I'm going to help you understand why you've been in conflict with yourself. Here we go. Chapter 3, chaos, control, and the real reason you can't stop. Myth, if I had more control, I wouldn't binge. Truth, binging is often your brain's attempt to create control when life feels chaotic. Let's talk about the word that haunts nearly everyone who's ever struggled with food. Control. You've probably told yourself, I just need more control. I've lost control of my eating. Why can't I control myself around food? But here's the twist. You're not binge eating because you lack control. You binge because food is your attempt to regain control. Let me explain. Think back to the last time you binged. Were you simply hungry, tempted, or greedy? Or were you really overwhelmed? Maybe tired, anxious, sad, stressed, lonely, or numb? In that moment, you didn't feel in control of your mind, your stress, or your body. So you reached for the one thing that offered predictable comfort, predictable outcome, and predictable numbness: food. When life feels chaotic, we crave control. It's human nature. That's wired into our survival instinct. Even though logically you know food won't solve the problem long term, logic doesn't win in the heat of the moment. Your brain doesn't want a solution, it wants relief. So you turn to food to distract, sedate, suppress, or regulate whatever discomfort is swirling around inside you. And temporarily, it works, but it comes with a cost. When you realize your eating issues aren't really about food, but about your need to feel in control when everything feels out of control, everything starts to shift. That awareness is key. The feedback loop. Each time you binge, your brain learns one thing. This helps me escape. Psychologists call this a reinforcement cycle. Your brain rewards the behavior with short-term relief, so you repeat it again and again and again. Repetition is the language of the brain. The more you repeat a behavior, the stronger it becomes, wired into your brain. You're not addicted to food in the way someone might be addicted to a chemical substance. You're addicted to the escape that food provides for you. You don't want the snack, you want the numbness. Quick reflection. What emotion most often triggers your binges? What pattern do you recognize in your shame loop? What's one recent moment when you reached for food to cope? Jot it down and let the awareness settle in. In episode 1 of the Why You Overeat podcast, where I broke down the first 2 chapters of my book, Why You Overeat and How to Stop for Good, I talked about the 5 patterns of overeating. If you go into the description of this video, you'll be able to take the Why You Overeat assessment to get your pattern of overeating. Food noise will show up under very specific circumstances. You may or may not be aware of those circumstances. Your job today is to find out exactly what those circumstances are. Because if you can't figure out why you overeat, why food noise shows up, why it's there in your moments of dysregulation, overwhelm, whatever the emotion is, then you're not going to be able to stop it. And you need to link, I'm using food for this particular reason. Now, I will get into it in later chapters and later episodes. But if you've followed me for a while, or you're one of my clients, or you've been to any of my events that I've done in person, or you've listened to podcasts and things I've been on before, you'll know a little bit about my backstory. The biggest trigger for me was anxiety. So if I was asking these questions to myself, what emotion most often triggers your binges? For me, back in the day, it would be anxiety. Straight away, by asking that question, right, what emotion do I recognize is always there alongside my food noise? What emotion do I always recognize is at its peak when I tend to overeat? For me, it was anxiety. Very clearly, I can pinpoint straight away. If I felt anxious, the first thing that came into my mind was, I just want to eat something to take the edge off. I just need to distract myself. I don't know what it is for you. It might be a different emotion. It might be a similar one. But get very, very clear on what those emotions underneath your triggers are, because I can promise you, it's not the food you want. It's the feeling food gives you that you seek. For me, I was overeating and binge eating, and I was struggling with food noise and giving into food noise because I didn't know how to turn anxiety off. I didn't know what to do when anxiety come knocking. That's exactly why I was doing it. I didn't know how to handle that. Next question. What's one recent moment when you reach for food to cope? Have a think about the last time you overate. It might have been quite recently. It might have been a while ago. It might have been today. Maybe you clicked on this video because you've struggled with your eating today and you went on YouTube. What happened most recently that led to overeating? If we want to really answer the why are you overeating? Ask yourself what emotions are underneath your food noise. If you just make it about the food, you make it about willpower and discipline and trying harder. You make it about trying to seek more control. But when you try and seek control of your eating, when you're out of control emotionally, you're actually invalidating your own emotions and the reason why the food noise is there in the first place. So ask yourself those two questions. What emotion most often trigger your binges or most often triggers food noise? And the last time you overate, what emotions were present in the background leading up to that overeating episode? So we're going to move on. We're going to read some more passages, okay? I'm going to read page 47 for you now, 47 to 50. Chapter 4, it's not about the food. Myth. Food is the problem I need to fix. Truth. Food is just the symptom. The real problem lies in emotional disconnection and unmet needs. Let's get one thing straight here. You don't binge because you love food. You binge because food has become your comfort, your pause button, your lifeline when everything else feels too loud, too hard, and too much. Most people think the problem is food. But if you wake up tomorrow with zero cravings, no urge to overeat, and complete peace around food, would the rest of your life feel fine? Probably not. That's the stuff we must uncover if we want to create true food freedom and emotional control. Because binging is a language of your body's way of saying something's off, please pay attention. Food is the latest fix we know. It offers what we crave emotionally. Comfort when we feel unloved, relief when we're overwhelmed, pleasure when life feels dull, escape when we're anxious, certainty when everything else feels unpredictable. Food is fast, accessible, and socially acceptable. It becomes our go-to coping mechanism. But the truth is, food can't fix what food didn't break. So instead of asking, why can't I stop eating this? The real question is, what is this food helping me avoid, soothe, or silence? You're not self-sabotaging, you're self-soothing. Let's say that again. You're not self-sabotaging, you're soothing. The urge to binge is a signal to an unmet need, not a failure. So instead of berating yourself the next time it happens, try this. 1. Pause. 2. Breathe. 3. Ask gently, what is this food doing for me right now? You don't need to fix it immediately. You just need to start noticing. Awareness is where real change begins. So that is a few pages from chapter 4. And I want to lean in on that, how this whole food noise is not actually the problem. This is such a big word right now. It's really popular. Everyone's on these weight loss medications. They're talking about food noise, food noise, food noise. When I take the medications, there's no food noise. But the moment I come off the medications, the food noise is back. Food noise is a big problem unless you know what it actually is. But the truth is, it's not actually the problem. Food noise is the symptom. Behind all food noise is suppressed emotions, unmet needs. A little rhyme that I say to my clients because it works very well and it's very easily rememberable. The needs that you don't meet will cause you to eat. So if you are someone listening to this podcast right now, you're watching this video series, you're listening to this content. Maybe you're out on a walk, maybe you're sitting at home watching it on your laptop, on your phone. I don't know how you are consuming this right now. But what I do know, you click on this video for a reason. You want to know what to do when food noise comes knocking. But before I teach you the strategies, how to break down food noise, how to beat food noise, how to actually process it in a way that doesn't lead to overeating, guilt, shame, anxiety, overwhelm, and a lack of results, because I can teach you all of that very, very soon in later episodes. Before we do that, you've got to be brave enough to ask yourself the question of what is underneath your food noise. So I'm going to say it again, the needs that you don't meet will cause you to eat. And behind all food noise, all urges to overeat, all triggers to binge, is unprocessed emotions. Now those are emotions that right now you're too afraid to feel. You're too afraid to feel, you don't know how to feel them, so you avoid them. You suppress them at all costs. You invalidate the emotions. You don't want to feel them. Now, that's normal. Not wanting to feel depression and anxiety, totally normal. I don't want to feel those emotions either. But if I was to feel them, after doing all this work on myself, I've been doing personal development for 8-9 years now. I've had 2,000 clients where I teach them personal development inside of my coaching programs. I don't want this to be true either. I'd rather not feel negative emotions either. But I accept that negative emotions are a part of life. And if I suppress negative emotions by unconsciously avoiding them, that means I'm invalidating them. Emotions are actually messengers. They're trying to let you know that something's off in your life. The reason why anxiety might be there is because there's a change that you need to make in your life that you're avoiding. The reason why you feel so angry and frustrated with life might be because your relationships are not going very well. You feel disconnected in a marriage. You feel a lack of intimacy with your partner. There's a lot of people pleasing going on. Maybe you're working so hard and sacrificing yourself for other people, you're not really being thanked for it. So maybe you're feeling angry and frustrated. But if you just keep pushing that down with food, or you just keep avoiding it, or you just keep pretending everything's fine, eventually those emotions are going to want to be heard. And when you suppress emotions, they're going to come out in strange ways. They might come out as a health issue. They might come out as an emotional breakdown. They might come out as impulsive or addictive behaviors. And for many people who struggle with that eating, using food is not just about handling a trigger in the moment. It's about unconsciously pushing down feelings that they're too afraid to feel. But what someone is doing in that moment is eating to avoid feeling. Because when you stop, that's when you feel. When you're not busy, that's when you feel. When you don't have a distraction, that's when you feel. So sometimes overeating can actually be done on autopilot, not even when you're triggered, just as a safety to avoid feeling emotions at all. Behind all food noise is suppressed and avoided emotions and unmet emotional needs. So I'm going to break down some of the deeper unmet needs in the next episode. I'm going to be breaking down a concept that I call the 7 voids. This is the main framework of my book. The 7 voids are very, very powerful. If you're a client of mine, or if you've ever been on a consult with me, or you've ever been at any of the in-person events that I've put on, then you would have heard me talk about the emotional voids, the 7 voids of disconnect. It is the main concept of my book, getting people to understand, why do you struggle with food noise? Why do you overeat? In some way, shape or form, because you have some sort of unmet emotional need. So in the next video, I'm going to break down these unmet emotional needs for you. And your job is to just listen, take notes, and get very, very clear on what these suppressed emotions are, what these unmet needs are, because these are the things that are driving food noise. If these unmet needs didn't exist, you wouldn't have food noise. You wouldn't struggle with food chatter. You wouldn't struggle with overeating. You'd be able to stop when you are full. You'd be able to finish a meal and move on. You'd be able to enjoy your night out and maybe have a few drinks and a few things on the menu that you wouldn't normally eat and just move on without feeling guilty, without feeling ashamed. Because when you feel out of control emotionally, you will look to regain control in some way, shape or form. But the paradox of control, the more you try and control, the more out of control you feel. If you want to get a copy of my book, you can buy it on Amazon, and you can also buy it directly from me. Just check out the link in the description if you want to get your hands on this yourself, as well as the food noise quiz. If you haven't taken the Why You Overeat assessment yet, like I mentioned right at the start of the video, make sure you click the link below. It's a 3-minute quiz that will give you your food noise patterns, and it will get you critically clear on how food noise shows up for you. This was the Why You Overeat podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.